Hey there, Tracy.
And Tracy, man. All right. So, how we get this started is Rob leads us in the third step prayer.
And that you will find on page 63 of your big book. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt.
Yes, already
Relieve me of the
of
bondage of
the
self,
bondages of self that I may
that I
better
may
do thy
better do
will.
thy will. Take away
Take
my
away my
difficulties,
difficulties,
that
that
victory
victory
over them may
may
bear
be
witness to those I would
those
help
good
of thy
thy
power,
power, thy
thy
way
love,
of life.
and thy way of
May
life.
I do
May I do
thy
thy
will.
will always.
Amen.
All right. Okay. We are going to talk about 8 changes today. We're in the chapter The Family Afterward. We are down at the near the bottom of page 130, and we'll start there, Rob.
Okay. One more suggestion.
Yes, sir.
One more. Okay, page 130, everybody. One more suggestion. Whether the family has spiritual convictions or not, they may do well to examine the principles by which the alcoholic member is trying to live. They can hardly fail to approve these simple principles, though the head of the house still fails somewhat in practicing them. Nothing will help the man who is off on a spiritual tangent so much as the wife who adopts a sane spiritual program, making a better practical use of it.
Yeah, and what we're talking about here is essentially supporting the alcoholic in their spiritual endeavors, and it is one that is built with understanding, empathy, and support. And so, basically, that's what we're trying to do here. We're going to talk about some changes that the alcoholic goes through, and and how the family again can support and show empathy for.
Yeah, and let's remember the time frame that we're in right now. This is 1939, 1940, depending upon when you got the book. And, the U.S. is still trying to come out of the Depression. A lot of the women at this time stayed home, looked after the children in the home, and it was the man that went outside of the home and worked, usually. Remember, Bill Wilson's wife was the one that was out working while Bill was at home. She was trying to keep the family going. But the way things were at that time, you know, so try to remember the time frame and remember how poor these people are. Remember, they're trying to get out of the depression. The US is still in a terrible depression. You know, homes were mortgaged to the hilt. The mortgage companies could not take over the homes because of a government moratorium on it. Okay. But that's not true. The government had taken the moratorium off because if we remember, Bill Wilson, just after this book was published, Bill Wilson's house was taken over by the mortgage company. So I do apologize for that error. And so remember, Bill was thrown out of his home. You know, the family home that Lois's father had purchased with his own hard work, hard-earned money. So we're at the bottom, page 130. There will be other profound changes in the household. Liquor incapacitated father for so many years that mother became head of the house. She met this responsibility gallantly. By force of circumstances, she was often obliged to treat father as a sick or wayward child. Even when he wanted to assert himself, he could not, for his drinking placed him constantly in the wrong. Mother made all the plans and gave the directions. When sober, father usually obeyed. Thus mother, through no fault of her own, became accustomed to wearing the family trousers. Father, coming suddenly to life again, often begins to assert himself, unless the family watches for these tendencies in each other and comes to a friendly agreement about them.
Yep. And so we're basically talking about change number one, and that is when the alcoholic becomes a sober and a recovering alcoholic, they try to reassert themselves in the position and or place that they fulfilled earlier before they really lost everything because of alcoholism. And um, that creates some friction and some angst. And as long as it requires, again, we've talked about this before, great communication, the ability to sit down and talk and listen to each other, and then it is a divide and conquer kind of conversation that we would have. And they have to kind of do a give and take. That's really where we are, is this compromise that has to happen with regard to the alcoholic coming back to life and trying to take over some of the responsibilities that they previously had that were taken over by the non-alcoholic head of the house. Rob?
You know, they talked about earlier in the book, patience, tolerance, understanding, and love are watchwords. And this is what now Bill is bringing into the family afterwards, is that the family have to have patience, tolerance, understanding, and love in order to get through these new way of dealing with things. You know, the alcoholic must assimilate his way back into the family, back into the family. The family's been going on without the alcoholic. You know, they've had to go on with life, and now the alcoholic has to re-assimilate himself into the household. You know, so it takes time, it takes patience, it takes love, it takes understanding. It's all these things that the alcoholic has been trying to learn. Now the family has to learn this and has to have a little bit of patience. So remember, that's what you know, Bill S. from New Jersey last week told us. This is what this chapter is all about, is, you know, the family learning to bring the alcohol back in, you know, who's trying to stay sober. How can they do that to the best of their ability? Drinking, we're on page 131, kicking. Drinking isolates most homes from the outside world. Father may have laid aside for years all normal activities, clubs, civic duties, sports. When he renews interest in such things, a feeling of jealousy may arise. The family may feel they hold a mortgage on dad, so big that no equity should be left for outsiders. Instead of developing new channels of activities for themselves, mother and children demand that he stay home and make up the deficiency.
Yeah, this is a conundrum. It's I like the analogy that they do with regard to a mortgage on dad, and that there's no equity left over for outsiders. But this is one of those areas where this is the second change when they start to get invigorated and involved with some of the outside activities that they participated in prior to their alcoholic environment. Maybe it's a club that they used to go to. Maybe they felt responsibility and volunteered at a church or another activity, and or if they were you know, sports, they could have been a participant in sports. Maybe they were an adult softball league or something like that. But these are things that they want to try to get back involved with. But the family is sitting there thinking, wait a minute, you know, you've been an alcoholic for all these years, and we have put up with it and lost out on time due to your alcoholism, and now we want that back. And so there's, again, we come back to this trouble unless the family watches for these tendencies in each other and comes to a friendly agreement about them. Again, it's a good lines of communication back and forth, give and take, and some empathy and understanding, and some compromise. Rob?
Isn't it better that the alcoholic is out and about instead of laying on the couch passed out? That's the way I always look at it. But you know what? You know, it's everybody just, you know, stepping back for a second, pause. My greatest line, pause, you know, and just think about, are we happy that he's sober or the alcoholic? Because I don't want to, you know, I know this book is more focused on the male being the alcoholic, but you know, we also have the female who could be in the same boat. So I don't want to make it male centric. Isn't it better that the alcoholic is out and about enjoying his life instead of being at home, drunk as a skunk? You know, so, and just, oh, the dad is okay now, or mom is okay, you know. Page 131. At the very beginning, the couple ought to frankly face the fact that each will have to eat here and there if the family is going to play an effective part in the new life. Father will necessarily spend much time with other alcoholics, but this activity should be balanced. New acquaintances who know nothing of alcoholism might be made and thoughtful consideration given their needs. The problems of the community might engage attention. Though the family has no religious connections, they may wish to make contact with or take membership in a religious body.
Yeah, so this is change number 3, and this is going to be working with other alcoholics, and this is one of those activities that is very prominent in the proven program of recovery with AA, and it is a necessary. It says this here, necessary to spend time with other alcoholics. It does say much time. But it is should be balanced. Again, we're talking about the activity of working with other alcoholics, that nothing ensures immunity to drinking than doing that. And at the same time, it's a balance. And so good communication and an understanding and some empathy on both sides with regard to the needs of the family versus the needs of the recovering alcoholic. Rob?
Yeah, I love the first line. At the very beginning, the couple ought to frankly face the fact that each will have to yield here and there if the family is going to play an effective part in the new life. Changes are happening. We all have to pause, take a moment, and think of all the good things that are starting to come our way. You know, the alcoholic is no longer drinking or trying not to drink. You know, they're trying to reintegrate themselves into the family. You know, they're trying to become a part of the family instead of isolating. So, you know, some very, very great things are happening right now. Bottom of page 131. Alcoholics who have derided religious people will be helped by such contacts. Being possessed of a spiritual experience, the alcoholic will find he has much in common with these people, though he may differ with them on many matters. If he does not argue about religion, he will make new friends and is sure to find new avenues of usefulness and pleasure. He and his family can be a bright spot in such congregations. He may bring new hope and new courage to many a priest, minister, or rabbi who gives his all to minister to our troubled world. We intend the foregoing as a helpful suggestion only. So far as we are concerned, there is nothing obligatory about it. As non-denominational people, we cannot make up others' minds for them. Each individual should consult his own conscience.
Yeah, we're talking about resources that are out there, in this case, religious resources that you might regard as assistance or help with your recovery, and making contact with them and participating in some religious activities can actually enhance a spiritual experience in ways that not doing so, obviously, it will not. But you know, certainly there may be differences. It does say we're not. This is a suggestion only. It's not it's not quite as necessary as, say, working with other alcoholics. But the bottom line is that it's a resource, much like the medical community is a resource, and counseling is a resource as well. There's just people out there that do various things, in this case, religious leaders that can sit down and do great work with recovering alcoholics on a one-on-one basis. Maybe the suggestions they make, you know, as a particular group that might be involved with the church, that they might participate in and find some enhancements to their spiritual experience.
You know, one of the great lines, Leo, is he may bring new hope and courage to many a priest, minister, or rabbi who gives his all to minister to our troubled world. Why? Because we can help other alcoholics. You know, the priest, minister, or rabbi now has somebody that he can turn to and say, you know, my parishioner is having a trouble with alcohol. Can you go and talk to him or her? And we can. Remember, one alcoholic talking to another is what this program is all based upon, is that we can get through where other people can't. So it's a huge tool for these religious people, you know, because they don't know how to deal with an alcoholic. Why would they? They've had no practical experience with it. Or maybe we get them to read this book and they get an understanding of how they can help out. But remember, the traditions were brought in for a reason. A lot of these things are outside issues, so we keep them to the outside. My religious views and Leo's religious views are our own business. Okay, he has his, I have mine, and we don't bring those into the room. Why? Because if we don't agree, Linda and I were talking before the meeting, and we were talking about football or soccer, and how the controversy and the fights and everything that happen over. You support one team, I support another. AA, we keep all this stuff to the outside because we don't need it into the rooms. You can cheer for your team outside the room. I can cheer for my team. Okay, but when we come into the room, our focus is on our sobriety and working on getting that spiritual experience so we'd never have to take that drink again. So, page 132, everybody. We have been speaking to you of serious, sometimes tragic things. We've been dealing with alcohol in its worst aspect. But we aren't a glum lot. If newcomers can see no joy or fun in our existence, they wouldn't want it. We absolutely insist, we absolutely insist on enjoying life. We try not to cynicism over the state of the nation, nor do we carry the world's troubles on our shoulders. When we see a man sinking into the mire that is alcoholism, we give him first aid and place what we have at his disposal. For his sake, we do not recount and almost relive the horrors of our past. But those of us who have tried to shoulder the entire burden and trouble of others find we are soon overcome by them.
Yeah, so there's there's a couple of sentences in here that a lot of people repeat, and for good reason. We aren't a glum lot. Um, it's one of the more famous sayings, and the idea here is that we aren't. We've recovered from alcoholism. Life is a lot more brighter. It's a lot more fun. It's a lot more enjoyable. So show that and express that in ways that the other recovering alcoholics can see, or those that are alcoholics and thinking about recovering can see, and say, hey, I want that. I want to have fun again. I want to be bright, and I want to smile. We try not to indulge in cynicism over the state of the nations, nor do we carry the world's troubles on our shoulders. So again, let bygones be bygones, and kind of let things roll off our backs, and not worry about things. That we basically give them the tools. We show them the good that can come out of it, and then we show them how much we enjoy being sober. Now, one of the things here is we do recount and almost relive the horrors of our past, but we actually kind of chuckle about them at times. It's kind of an odd thing that I think some people on the outside don't understand, but we can actually look at them with some humor and be able to deal with them in that way. And a lot of people do that. A lot of recovering alcoholics do that. So that's really the message here in that regard, is to show that recovering from alcoholism is fun and enjoyable, and something that's very desirable. Bob?
Yeah, a good friend of mine, Art, always says, we aren't a glum lot, but we are an odd lot. And, it's so true. And the next line, if newcomers could see no joy or fun in our existence, they wouldn't want it. I've gone to some meetings, some fellowship meetings, and there are some miserable people there. I'm just miserable. And when I first got sober, I looked at these people and said, if that is sobriety, I don't want it, because they are just miserable. But then you see all the other people that are happy, laughing, enjoying life. That's what I want. I want to enjoy life. I isolated and was miserable, thinking that the whole world was against me. My job stunk, that I never got any further ahead. That's me, my thinking, you know, being glum, you know, not realizing that of all the good things that I had in my life, not realizing that, you know what, I have an incredible wife who is supportive and cares about me, two wonderful kids that are healthy and happy, you know. So I have things pretty good, you know, but I have a drinking problem. How do I get rid of that? So I go to the fellowship. I see all these incredible people that are helping others, helping the newcomer. Remember, if there's no newcomers, fellowship will die. It'll wither away and die. Okay, the long timers, they'll go on their merry way. But you know what? We need newcomers in order to keep generating. And what does the newcomer do? Keeps me sober. As I teach them about trying the 12 steps and getting their spiritual experience, that's, you know, that's giving me what I need to do, reminding me all the time of what I have to do in order for me to stay sober. So no newcomer, no program. So we have to keep it going. So we think cheerfulness and laughter make for usefulness. Outsiders are sometimes shocked when we burst into merriment over a seemingly tragic experience out of the past. Why shouldn't we laugh? We have recovered and have been given the power to help others.
Yeah, and this is just a an exclamation mark as to the change five, and that is the insistence on laughter and enjoying life. It just basically is just a reinforcement of that, and one that I mean, I see that in this group. It's not a week goes by that we don't laugh about something. Really, really good stuff overall. There's a lot of we have recovered and have been given the power to help others, and there you go. The enjoyment of doing that is immense. Rob?
Yeah, I'm going to put something in the chat, and what it is it says this: information about alcoholism does not help a person stop drinking, though it is helpful once one has begun the process of recovery. But stories give hope, communicate love, and build community, which are the power of God, who is love. And I thought, wow, how beautiful that is. We share our stories for other people to help them out. And, we do, I've seen some speakers who are just incredibly funny. They tell stories about, how they hid liquor bottles at work and here, there, and everywhere, and the humor that comes out of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a deadly disease. Yes, we know that. But you know what? We laugh at the strangest things because we can relate. I was in a meeting yesterday and they talked about, in the book that we were reading about somebody that had quite a few DUIs. And as the person related it, other people could relate because they put themselves in dangerous situations. So we can relate to certain parts of the story. No, we don't necessarily have the same story. I don't have the same story as Leo, but there's something that in Leo's story that I can relate to in the fact that I put myself in the same type of situation. Crazy, stupid on my part, you know. But when Leo and he's laughing, so we can relate in a humorous way. I can't tell Leo's story, okay, and make fun of Leo because he'll get a resentment for it. But Leo can tell a story and I can relate to it and we can laugh together, you know. And that's why we tell our stories so it can help other people. The grief is easier to handle when I can laugh too. So true, Kickin. So true. Everybody knows that those in bad health and those who seldom play do not laugh much. So let each family play together or separately as much as their circumstances warrant. We're sure God wants us to be happy, joyous, and free. We cannot subscribe to the belief that this life is a vale of tears, though it once was just that for many of us. But it is clear that we made our own misery. God didn't do it. Avoid then the deliberate manufacture of misery. But if trouble comes, cheerfully capitalize on it as an opportunity to demonstrate his omnipotence. See, I got the word, Leo.
You got it.
I got the word. I got the word. I usually stumble over that one, people. So
Yep, you got it this time, Nancy. We so that's what there's an important message here, and they're just reinforcing it yet again with regard to the family playing together or separately. Wants us to be happy, joyous, and free, and certainly it doesn't come automatically. There is a certain amount of relief that you feel once you've had that spiritual experience and have been able to have that rely on that higher power to assist you in not drinking. There's a lightness that comes with it. Colors are brighter, and certainly there's a bit of joy with that. But happy, joyous, and free comes over time as well. It generates over a period of time. So there's growing into this new world that is the recovered alcoholic and the family. So give it some time and be patient with it and find the opportunities and capitalize on those opportunities to be happy, joyous, and free. And over time it will actually come true. Um, it's not what they say is a veil of tears. It once was, but not now. It's clear that we made our own misery. God didn't do it. That's another important message here. You can't blame the other person for what you've done and what you've created, but it's gone. That's the good news. That's the part that needs to be communicated and understood and nurtured. It's gone. Capitalize it as an opportunity to demonstrate his omnipotence. So that's excellent, excellent advice, and one where we can actually over time really come to this happy, joyous, and free. Remember the alcoholic when they first become out recovered, and they're kind of going through all of the motions and trying to figure out this new way of life and that type of thing. They still owe a lot in both probably time and money. So it's stuff that they've got to work on. So it's a bit of growing into this happy, joyous, and free, but it is there for the taking, and it is there for those that actually work for it. Rob?
yeah, what came to mind here is count your blessings, not your problems. And the next time you find yourself grappling with difficulties or negativity, remember to count your blessings. It's not about dismissing your problems, but rather about fostering a mindset of gratitude. And that's how we get through life's problems. You know, remember, we have spiritual tools that we have been given as an alcoholic. The family has not been given these tools that the alcoholic has, so it's up to the alcoholic to share them with the family. Okay? Because the family's going through problems too. How do they deal with it? We don't want them to take up alcohol like we did. We don't want them to take up other things, overeating, whatever it could be. We are sure God wants us to be happy, joyous, and free. That's what it's all about. That's what I want out of life. I want to be happy. I want to have joy, and I want to be free to enjoy it. And how do I do that? We can create our own misery. We can sit and think about how bad things are and how poor we have it. But you know what? Count our blessings. Okay. And think about all the good things that we have in our life. Our spiritual kit of tools, let's share them with the rest of the family and say, how fortunate you are? You know, and a lot of times, we don't. We want to sit in our own depression and our own misery. Okay. But we have tools to get out of that. God, please take away what I'm feeling right now so that I can enjoy life, so that I can be of help to somebody else. What did Bill do when things got tough? And he thought to himself, nobody will hire me. I can't get a job. I burned all the bridges, so I can't go back into the stock. What did he do? He went to Town's Hospital to help somebody else.
Mhm.
So these are tools that we have had, and Bill has shown us how to use them all the way through. Now about health. A body badly burned by alcohol does not often recover overnight nor do twisted thinking and depression vanish in a twinkling. We are convinced that a spiritual mode of living is the most powerful health restorative. We who have recovered from serious drinking are miracles of mental health. But we have seen remarkable transformations in our bodies. Hardly one of our crowd now shows any mark of
Dissipation.
I got him omnipotence, but
Yep.
but I'm tripping over this one. Leo, you got to help me with this one.
Dissipation.
Dissipation, thank you, which is loss of health.
Yep. Yep, and this is change number 6. It's we're talking about health and your body and the recovery of that from alcoholism. I'll tell you a quick story of me. I was had a tremor, and I was taking medication to control that tremor. And what was first thought of is just basically something that I had permanently. I after about 9 months after I had stopped drinking, that tremor started to go away, and was able to, over time, about a 3 or 4 month period there with 2 doctors that I was working with, I was able to actually stop taking the medication, because what we realized is that tremor was my body's withdrawal from alcohol. And it took 9 months for my body to finally get over that. And so it does take time, just like it says here. It doesn't often recover overnight. We are the spiritual mode. We're talking about a spiritual way of living. It's very, very helpful in that regard. And those that have recovered are miracles of mental health. That's another thing that actually gets in, that improves, is our mental state. And those are what they say here is remarkable transformations. So we're talking now about health and that change that happens once you stop drinking, and the improvement of your health in many different ways. Rob?
Yeah, they're talking about the health here, and I just put something in the chat, and it's the Tracy Chapman had it years ago. Luke Combs has now brought it out and has made a hit out of it. And there's a line in there that says, "See, my old man's got a problem. He lives with the bottle. That's the way it is." He says his body's too old for working. His body's too young to look like this. And when I read this paragraph, that's what I thought about. Is that line that rolled in my head, is that, sometimes our health goes terrible, you know, liver stops working. My cousin died of this disease. Well, more than one cousin, to be honest with you. His daughter died from it too at 58. But he got cirrhosis of the liver. His stomach was just distended like crazy. I couldn't believe it was the same guy. And then his daughter dies of it too. You know, but our health can go to hell in a handbag, that's for sure. And just be grateful and count our blessings, because we are not in that position. But this does not mean that we disregard human health measures. God has abundantly supplied this world with fine doctors, psychologists, and practitioners of various kinds. Do not hesitate to take your health problems to such persons. Most of them give themselves freely, but that their fellows may enjoy sound minds and bodies. Try to remember that though God has wrought miracles among us, we should never belittle a good doctor or psychiatrist. Their services are often indispensable in treating a newcomer and in following his case afterward.
Absolutely. And I go back to page 73. Psychologists are inclined to agree with us. We have spent thousands of dollars for examinations. We know of few instances where we have given these doctors a fair break. We have seldom told them the whole truth, nor have we followed their advice. Unwilling to be honest with these sympathetic men and women, we are honest with no one else. Small wonder many in the medical profession have low opinions of alcoholics and their chance for recovery. So I read that to say that we don't give them a fair shake, and we should. And in every case that This doctors, psychologists, and practitioners of various kinds do not hesitate to take your health problems to such persons and be open and honest. My doctors know that I'm an alcoholic. I have told them that, and we have talked about my drinking, and now not drinking, and so they measure and their diagnosis and prognosis of me based on, in part, of my alcoholism. So very open and honest and seeking their help for that. And these are people that can be very, very helpful um, in as long as we're open and honest and seeking their help. Not to mention the fact that it actually helps their opinion of other alcoholics when you've got a good alcoholic, and I call it a good alcoholic, somebody that's being open and honest with the doctor and stuff. So their services are in fact indispensable. Rob?
Yeah, one thing we have to remember, we are not doctors. And if somebody needs help, go get it. You know, that's why these people are here put on earth. You know, I've heard of sponsors telling sponsees, you can go off that medication, you know, just keep praying. No, no. You know what? We are not doctors. That is not our responsibility. That is not in our job description. Okay? We are not doctors. Please remember that. One has many doctors who had the opportunity of reading this book in manuscript form told us that the use of sweets was often helpful, depending upon a doctor's advice. He thought all alcoholics should constantly have chocolate available for its quick energy value at times of fatigue. He added that occasionally in the night a vague craving arose which would be satisfied by candy. Many of us have noticed a tendency to eat sweets and have found this practice beneficial.
Yeah, this is kind of a sidebar, and I think it's dependent upon the individual. But I would tell you that for me personally, I do in fact enjoy sweet things, whereas when I was drinking, I did not. The idea is that I was getting the sugar that my body was using and or quote craving. I was getting it through the alcohol that I was drinking, and so when I stopped drinking, I had to replace it with something that was sweet, and I certainly did. So and I enjoy desserts now when I didn't when I was an alcoholic. So I'm a sucker for ice cream, vanilla, in fact, with something on it. So bottom line is that a little bit of candy, a little bit of chocolate, some ice cream, something like that being available so that whenever there is a craving, this can be a great and worthy substitute and get your mind off of things and satisfy that craving as you maneuver your recovery. Rob?
Yeah. Who wants a beer after having chocolate cake?
There
You
you
know,
go.
but and I can attest to this because I ate when I first quit drinking. You know, I had Werther's candies constantly, and I couldn't figure out, well, why am I eating so many of these candies? And then somebody mentioned at one of the meetings that sugar, you know, because alcohol has a lot of sugar in it. You know, now I'm taking these candies in order to make up for that sugar that the body has been craving. So, just an interesting thing. A word about sex relations. Alcohol is so sexually stimulating to some men, they have overindulged. Couples are occasionally dismayed to find that when drinking is stopped, the man tends to be impotent. Unless the person is understood, or I'm sorry, unless the reason is understood, there may be an emotional upset. Some of us had this experience only to enjoy in a few months a finer intimacy than ever. There should be no hesitancy in consulting a doctor or a psychologist. If the condition persists, we do not know of many cases where this difficulty lasted long.
Yeah, and it's a transition. It's a change, and certainly, alcohol is a depressant, and so scientifically, I guess you would say that the more you drink, the less able you are to engage in sex. But at the same time, there is the beginning of drinking where you started out, and it kind of breaks down some barriers, and it allows you to be more social in that regard. So stopping the drinking, that kind of difficulty in social uh, activities tends to crop back up, and it's something to work through and overcome. And certainly there with regard to sex, and it should be that things are better once you've stopped drinking because you're clear mind, and everything works a lot better in that regard. Rob?
We'll take your word for it, Leo.
Okay.
The alcoholic may find it hard to reestablish friendly relations with his children. Their young minds were impressionable while he was drinking. Without saying so, they may cordially hate him for what he has done to them and to their mother. The children are sometimes dominated by a pathetic hardness and cynicism. They cannot seem to forgive and forget. This may hang on for months, long after their mother has accepted Dad's new way of living and thinking.
Yep, and there is that case where the children, so this is another activity here where the hard to reestablish friendly relations with the children. They're resilient and can overcome, but at the same time, their understanding is at a different level, their maturity is at a different level, and so they have to be handled in a different way. And so that's kind of one that you have to kind of nurture and give space, time, and patience to. And there again, we talk about this balance so that the activities include, the children, and maybe it's one-on-one with each individual child and/or as a group. But nonetheless, it's hard for them to trust again, and that's really what we're talking about here with regard to their ability to forgive and move on. Certainly, it does have an impact on them. They are very impressionable. So, having gone through a period of time with the alcoholic member of the family, creating angst and discontent and problems. Now that that the alcoholic is not drinking and is back, it takes some time. Now, the opposite may be true, and I'm going to throw that out there because some kids just get, like, okay, now their ability to move on is sometimes better than adults, and so and they basically jump right in and want the time and activities that are associated with the non-alcoholic or the recovering alcoholic member of the family. Rob?
In time, they will see that he is a new man, and in their own way, they will let him know it. When this happens, they can be invited to join in morning meditation, and then they can take part in the daily discussion without rancor or bias. From that point on, progress will be rapid. Marvelous results will often follow such a reunion.
Yeah, and this is kind of neat where you basically get them involved. It's my thing of talking about how you get from point A to point B with somebody. You focus on their needs. You persuade them through involvement, which is they will, when this happens, invited to join in the morning meditation, and then they can take part in the daily discussions. That's persuade through involvement. And then from there, you earn the right to advance and go to the next stage. And that is from that point on, progress will be rapid. So you basically focus on their needs and wants. You persuade them that you are on board with them and get them involved. And by getting them involved, they will be much more agreeable to your recovery. and participating in that recovery and allowing you back into their lives and to then earn that right to advance, which is that you get to a better place in their life. So remember the three things that I've talked about multiple times in regards to how best to approach people and get, like I said, from point A to point B. Rob?
Top of page 135, everybody. Whether the family goes on a spiritual basis or not, the alcoholic member has to, if he would recover. The others must be convinced of his new status beyond the shadow of a doubt. Seeing is believing to most families who have lived with a drinker.
Yep. And so this is just basically a warning, if you will, a spiritual basis or not. The alcoholic member has to if he would recover. And so it's again, we talk about that spiritual experience. You want the rest of the family to be on board, to have their own spiritual part in the activity of recovery. But if they don't, that's okay. It's not the best of situations, but it is still one where the alcoholic can recover as long as they adhere to their spiritual experience and needs. Rob?
That's a warning if the alcoholic member has to if he would recover. On page 45, it says to be doomed to an alcoholic death or to live on a spiritual basis are not always easy alternatives to face. And then a little bit lower down on the page, but after a while, we had to face the fact that we must find a spiritual basis of life or else. So please remember that. And also, seeing is believing. Show me, don't tell me. Don't tell me you're better. Show me. Okay, and that's what it really comes down to. It's you know, we can talk all we want. We've talked for a long period of time. I'm quitting drinking. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. Don't tell me anymore. Just show me. Here is a case in point. One of our friends is a heavy smoker and coffee drinker. There was no doubt he overindulged. Seeing this and meaning to be helpful, his wife commenced to admonish him about it. He had admitted he was overdoing these things, but frankly said that he was not ready to stop. His wife is one of those persons who really feels there is something rather sinful about these commodities. So she nagged and earned tolerant, finally threw him into a fit of rage. He got drunk. Of course, our friend was wrong, dead wrong. He had to painfully admit that and mend his spiritual fences. Though he is now a most effective member of Alcoholics Anonymous, he still smokes and drinks coffee, but neither his wife nor anyone else stands in judgment. She sees she was wrong to make a burning issue out of such a matter when his more serious ailments were being readily cured.
All right, and then we're talking, of course, about Mr. Earl Street. I'm sorry, Treat, Mr. Earl Treat. His story is he's at AA in Chicago. It's on page 258. But here's one of those situations where you've got somebody that's on your case. They don't agree with your activities. In this case, it's somebody that's a heavy smoker and a heavy coffee drinker. But after a period of time of nagging and writing and complaining about the activity, the alcoholic said, got the heckets and turned around and drank. Got drunk and things got worse. And so at that point, everybody kind of came together. Communication happened, good communication, and then a kind of an agreement kind of materialized. And out of that, they found themselves in agreement. And while he's still a smoker and a drinker of coffee, he's no longer a drinker of alcohol, and things are much better because of it. Rob?
You know, she was probably right to bother him about smoking because Bill Wilson died of emphysema. Ebby died of emphysema. You know, smoking was but they didn't know any better at that time. They didn't realize, you know, doctors, when they were looking, when you came through as a patient, they would be smoking while they were examining you. So, you know, at this time, you know, everybody, or the majority, it seemed like the majority of the population was smoking at this time, you know? So she was probably, as I say, she probably knew a lot more about these things, and he should have quit smoking. But you know what? In this time period, remember what Bill S. from New Jersey always tells us: alcoholics drink at people. You tell me not to do something, I'm gonna do it just to spite you. So we drink at people. And I saved these three little models for the end, Leo. We have three little models which are apropos. Here they are. First things first, live and let live, and easy does it.
Absolutely. And I've put out to the side is first things first, and that is get God. Live and let live is mind your own business. And easy does it is that pause that Rob likes so much. Okay. Let's go ahead and bring Bill in, and we'll close things out for the week.
Hi, this is Bill, alcoholic from New Jersey.
Hey,
Thanks a
Bill.
lot, guys. Good job today. Yeah, this here chapter here, the family afterwards. Remember, this is written specifically to the family of an alcoholic. This is not just all the families in the world, even though everybody could probably use the information in here. This was specifically written to the families of an alcoholic, because Bill and the other people that came up with this process and put this book together, they understood if you help the people that were living with the alcoholic and dealing with the alcoholic most of the time, the alcoholic would have a better chance of getting sober. So they were trying to help the family and anybody else, and you can use this for sponsoring also. Anybody that's dealing with an alcoholic, if they're getting better, it's easier for the alcoholic to get better. You know, most of our families, our wives, our relatives, whatever, they're a little bit crazy because we drove them crazy with what we were doing when we were drinking. Now, if you're trying to get sober and you're still dealing with people that are acting a little bit crazy because of what you did years ago or just last week or whatever, it's going to be harder for you to get better. So Bill understood that, and the other people in AA, the pioneers of AA, they understood that not only the alcoholic needed help, but the people that were closest to the alcoholic, they needed help also. And that's basically what he's trying to do here. At the time, they didn't have anything like Al-Anon, or that didn't come out until somewhere around 1951 when Al-Anon started. So while all of this stuff was going on and they were trying to help alcoholics get sober, they knew that by helping the family of the alcoholics, that would indirectly help the alcoholic. So these people were really onto something. They knew what they were doing. And there's some real good stuff in here. Like on page 132, it says, we are in a glum lot. If newcomers could see no joy in this, they wouldn't want it. They understood that they had to enjoy themselves. They had to have a good time when they were doing this, because if they didn't, newcomers wouldn't want it. Well, why are they emphasizing newcomers? Without newcomers, they can't do the program. The whole basis of this program, what we get to, is carrying the message to someone else. That's what's going to keep us sober more than anything else. And if we don't have any newcomers, we don't have anybody to carry the message to. That's why newcomers are so important, because without a newcomer, the program doesn't exist. You know, what are you going to have? Two old timers carrying the message back and forth to each other? That's going to get sickening real quick, you know. So we need newcomers, because newcomers are what make this program work, and that's what makes the program keep going and keep growing. If Bill and Bob never went out and found anybody else and didn't get any newcomers, AA wouldn't exist. So the newcomers are the lifeblood of AA. And also on the bottom of 132, it says, we have recovered and been given the power to help others. You'll hear people say in the rooms, we're powerless over people, places, and things. That's not what my book says. My book says, I have been given the power to help others. If someone's trying to get sober and they want to get sober, because I already got sober, I have the power to help them get sober. This is probably one of the most important things to me in here. You know, don't ever be afraid to help somebody. You can't hurt them. If somebody's trying to get sober, don't take the attitude, gee, I don't have enough time. I can't help them. If you didn't drink today, you can tell them what you did so you could stay sober today and you could be helping them. Even if you haven't been through all the steps yet, you can still show them friendliness. You can give them your phone number. You can tell them where there's good meetings. You can help them out, give them a ride, whatever needs to be done. You can still help somebody. So don't ever be afraid to help somebody, because that's what's going to keep you sober in the long run. You know, there was this story going around AA one time about this. They were doing some work on a road, and they dug this big hole in the middle of the road, and they put up the cones and that yellow tape, and they were going to come back the next day and fix it. And during the night, a drunk comes staggering out of a bar, and he staggers past the cones, and he falls into the hole. Now the hole was deep enough he couldn't get out. He's stuck in the hole. So along comes a businessman. The businessman looks down in the hole and says, hey, what happened to you? The drunk says, I fell in the hole. Can you get me out of here? And the businessman says, no, I don't have any way of getting you out of there, but I can give you some money and maybe you can buy a ladder and get yourself out of there. So then the businessman leaves. Then a priest comes by, and the priest says, oh, what happened to you, my son? And the drunk says, Father, I fell in the hole. Can you get me out of here? And the priest says, gee, I really don't know how to get you out of there. But what I can do, I can stay here for a little while and I can pray with you. So the priest prays with the guy for a little bit. Then the priest leaves. Then a doctor comes by. And the doctor says, hey, what happened to you? You're stuck in that hole? And the guy says, yeah, I fell in here, doc. Can you get me out of here? And the doctor says, no, I really can't get you out of there. But did you get hurt when you fell in the hole? The guy says, yeah, I think I might have twisted my ankle a little bit and it hurts. And the doctor says, no problem. I'll throw you down some aspirins. Take 2 aspirins and call me in the morning. And the doctor leaves. Then a psychiatrist comes by. And the psychiatrist looks in the hole and says, what are you doing in there? And the guy says, I fell in this hole. Can you get me out of here? And the psychiatrist says, no, I don't really have a way of getting you out of there. But what I can do, I can tell you why you're stuck in that hole. You're stuck in that hole because when you was a little kid, your parents were mean to you. And the guy says, look, can you get me out of here or not? And the psychiatrist says, no, I can't get you out of here. But what I can do, I'll come back once a week and talk to you for an hour. Here's your bill. So all of these people, all these professional people, businessmen, priests, doctors, psychiatrists, they can't get us out of a hole. They can help us. They can give us money. They can have employee assistance programs in different businesses. The doctor can treat whatever problems we have. If we got hurt when we were drinking or whatever, the psychiatrist can psychoanalyze us and give us all kinds of answers. The priest can pray for us. But they can't get us out of the hole. Now, all of a sudden, along comes a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. He looks in the hole, and the guy says, hey, I fell in the hole. And the guy from A says, yeah, I know what happened. I know exactly what's going on with you. So the guy says, can you get me out of here? So the sober member of AA says, all right, back up. You're too close to the edge. Back up a little bit. The guy backs up in the hole, and the guy from AA jumps in the hole with him. So the drunk says, what are you, crazy? Now we're both stuck in the hole. And the guy from AA says, take my hand. I've been here before. I know the way out. We are uniquely qualified to help somebody get out of that hole that they're stuck in with drinking, because we got out of it. We know the way out. And those 2 guys got out of the hole. It's a very, very short distance. It only takes 12 steps to get out of there. And basically what this chapter is about is trying to help the family, because they understood that by helping the family, that will help the alcoholic. And we're capable of helping other alcoholics because we've been through this process and we were able to get sober. Even if you haven't completed the process yet, you can still help somebody. You can point them out into a meeting where somebody is that can explain all of the steps to them. So don't ever be afraid to help anybody. If you got sober by going through this process, or even if you got sober just by going to meetings, whatever you did to get sober, you can tell that to a person that's trying to get sober, and that will help them for a while. They're going to probably need to get a hold of somebody that can walk them through all of the steps, but you can at least point them in the right direction and help them out for the time being. That's pretty much all I got. Thanks a lot for letting me share.
Thanks, Bill. Incredible. I love that story.
Yep, that was great. That was great. Okay, we'll close out with the Serenity Prayer, Rob.
Okay. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.